Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you're new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and a link in the info box below this video once it's rendered. But most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show, as sharing the show increases the live audience, of course, and this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you are new to the channel or you have not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Sleeping Warrior and Arwin. How are you both doing?
All is good, all is good.
Well, it's all gonna depend now, is it?
Me and Arwin just had a massive blazing row before this show started. I should really qualify that straight away.
Nah. Let's just change.
Yeah, throwing names at me because I disagree with you.
Well, you're right. I did get a bit angry. I did call you a few names. My apologies.
Yeah. Well, that's accepted, but I'm gonna repeat the point, and that is, I think it was very intellectually dishonest of you, the way you approached flat Earth math yesterday. And
Intellectually
you did not
dishonest in
deserve
what
that,
way?
and I want to please finish my point in the full, and then you can respond to it, and then you can make your arguments. But what I heard there, and this is just very typical, is that he distinctly made a statement that he does not use R in his calculations. And just because he believes in the globe, just because in his heart he wants it to be the globe, has absolutely nothing to do with the way he uses and he applies his calculations. And you constantly try to force those two back together, his belief and the way he calculates. He made a very elaborate point that that calculation system that does use R is not his system. And he just showed like, hey, if you want to use this, this is how you do it. Didn't actually say, okay, this is the one you have to use. Just says, look, this is how you use that. I use something different. And hey, besides that, the way he assumed the height of Riley's footage, that was ridiculous. Okay, the man is not flawless. That's pretty obvious. He does seems to make mistakes, but he's a nice guy and he doesn't deserve to be inquisitive like that. And that was that.
Sure, other than he does definitely have a belief in R. R being the radius of Earth, and that is fixed in their model. It must be that size. He must calculate using that radius. Yes, I understand that he tried to weasel out of it and distance himself from R. However, R is a requirement. Radius, sphere. The two go hand in hand, and they have a radius for their sphere, and it is the value used in GitHub and Metabunk. Coincidentally, the two videos he did use in his video.
Right. Well, to be honest, I have not seen the video. I'm merely responding to what he's said right there.
Are you
He
having a
says
laugh?
he uses his
I
own.
can't believe my
he's
ears. Let
devising
me get
his
this
own-
straight. So, Charles makes a video about me, specifically, and this show, right? Names me in it, yeah? References me in it, and specifically misrepresents the argument by not including the fact that you have a presupposition of R in the calculators he used. You're taking aversion to that on account of the fact that he said, no, he's not using R, but you haven't actually seen the video, Arwin.
Yeah,
No, but
Arwin,
he
wait,
said he doesn't use R in his own.
I'll say it again, because you haven't watched the video. He does use R, he uses GitHub and Metabunk. Both assume a radius. They have it listed in the calculation as a value of R.
Yes, you don't have to repeat that. It was
I
quite
do.
obvious.
Well, no, not when you're telling me I'm wrong for telling him that he does absolutely, unequivocally assume the radius of Earth, because he does.
But not only has he told you that you're wrong, he's not even watched the video in which you're wrong. He's telling you you're wrong about. I mean, that is the definition of a baller, Arwin. Do you realise that is ignorance to its perfect definition, right? Come on.
Well,
No.
don't go that far, because Arwin did say it was based on what he said in the Hangout, but he's a liar.
Yeah, but that which was based on what was said on the Hangout was based on the video in which Arwin's not seen. He's stabbing in the dark at things that he thinks that math lying to you, Arwin, and you're accepting it without looking at the video. You should watch the video and then form your
He
opinion.
said that the calculators, which you
I don't
just
care what he
repeated,
said.
use
Watch the
R.
video.
That's obvious. The calculators that he used in that video use R.
And he used those calculators to put his apparently even-sided argument. He misrepresented the flat Earth side and claimed that we say, unequivocally, the horizon is at eye level. We don't. We've gone to great efforts to debunk that assertion. Especially near the ground, you have an apparent horizon. And we've debunked that. Well, that was what he was using to represent the flat Earth argument. How very even-handed of him. And then he distances himself. Hold on, Arwin. He then distances himself on the Hangout and in his way of putting his video together from the globe Earth argument. Well, the fact that he's distancing himself from it to seem impartial is nonsense. Yeah, and weaselly when I say, well, do you believe this, Charles? And he won't admit to it. That's just being a weasel.
No, I don't agree to that. I think it is a type of entrapment.
Right, let me put
Because
it
his personal belief has nothing to do
Arwin,
the
let
way
me put
he
it a different way.
conducts his calculations and all that, and like what his base research is. But
Arwin.
hey, look, as I said, I haven't seen the video literally, but he made a very elaborate point that he doesn't use R in his own personal research. He just used those calculators that do apply R in this case.
He must apply R. We're talking about spheres, right?
Yeah, I know. You don't have to remind me.
Right,
Okay?
so he will use R. I guarantee you of that, because he believes he lives on a bloody sphere.
No, I don't know. Let's see his actual formulas that he's working on. If there's an R in there,
I did.
Then yeah,
I did.
then he
I keep saying you haven't seen the video. I saw the formula, it had it up on screen, and I responded and pointed out that he crossed out R values with his circling of the maths he wanted to focus on, and didn't explain that it's a presuppositional mathematical formula. So not seeing the video and telling me he's not using R when literally he has crossed out that value in his maths is outrageous, Arwin. Why are you doing this?
Really?
Yeah.
Did that?
Yeah,
Arwin,
I even took screen caps and made my own video response and said the words, "Why are you crossing out the R value, Charles? Don't you like focusing on that little bit?" Now he's declaring he doesn't use R. Well, he's a liar. Charles is a liar if that's the case. If he's declaring he doesn't use R, I will say it right here. He's a liar. He does.
And the reason why
he
he's
must.
a liar, Arwin, is because he's deceiving.
And it's worked on you.
He's not trying to. He's not making a mistake. He's deceiving. He's telling misstatements of fact that.
Look, it was very messy yesterday, and I haven't seen any follow-up hangouts, any specific response hangouts that you made. So I don't know about those. I was just merely responding to the way you approached it yesterday. It would have been a lot nicer if you'd actually had gone into that literal formula that he made himself with his own research, and then pointed out, look, there's the R right there. Because then I wouldn't have started.
Sorry, Arwin. What I challenged him to do was precisely that. Prove R. It was the title of my video response. I asked him to bring R. The very thing you're saying, well, he should have had an opportunity to show you R. The very thing I asked him for, Arwin.
Oh, Nathan, present my screen, please.
No,
Let me show
that's
Arwin.
not what I said. No, I said to present the formula, and if you had then pointed out the R in there, then
Arwin,
what
I've
would have
waited
been obvious.
patiently, and I'd like to respond. Nathan, is it presenting?
Yeah, you are.
Right, this is the beginning of his video. He took a freeze frame from my clip, and you know where this was taken. It was taken on the sand, on that little thing, right? And what he's trying to say is, because these are below the horizon, he can make a calculated guess, or he can calculate where they are, right? Which I don't know what he's done, but look what he's doing. He's straight onto the GizHub one, which he says doesn't take into account refraction or physics. But regardless of whether it takes into refraction or physics or what, it takes you into the refraction. He takes you into the refraction point in a sec. Hopefully, when he gets to about here. And what he's saying is that the observer height is really important, right? On a ball, I agree with him. On a geometric sphere, I agree with him. Now, what he's saying is because it's so important, when he's talking about these people, what he does is look at how he represents the next thing. Now, he's given some presuppositions, some points here that was Nathan's response. But look what he's doing now, this bit. He's trying to imply that the video was taken at an elevation of 6 feet, right? He's not putting the camera on the sand right in front of the water, which is, of course, where it is.
Right,
So
you
what he's
find me... Sorry,
misrepresenting
I've got to interrupt here because I pointed this out in the comments because there wasn't enough time yesterday. So just sit back to where we've got this complete and utter nonsense where he's got the horizon at 3 miles away. Yeah, he's inserted another global presupposition that I had rumpus toes to the fire on. Where the hell do you get a 3 mile horizon from, Charles? Oh, I know where you get it from, because you presuppose you're on a sphere. Now, you're saying if the Earth is flat. Now, why on earth would you assert that certain flat earthers assume the horizon is 3 miles away? Total and utter nonsense.
Yeah, that is kind of stupid.
Yeah, the value has come from his presuppositional sphere model, where they absolutely tell you, and it's in the calculations that he put up on screen that are sphere calculations, that the horizon on a sphere is 3 miles away. So he's misrepresenting the mathematics, he's weaselly and won't attribute his own belief to this, even though he declared it at the beginning of the show when he entered, that he is one of the globe believers. I might happen to be one of those believers. Yeah, weaselly. Okay. Yeah, because he wants to distance himself from it to seem impartial, even though he's both misrepresenting our argument and having a presuppositional argument of his own.
Okay. Well, I would have been nice if you'd actually shown this yesterday instead of...
Well,
to be honest, you could have watched it, Arwin. I'm not here to baby you.
Yeah. You really, Arwin, you should have watched the video before passing a comment, because it would have made it sound a little bit more impartial. He's misrepresenting things in the video, and that's Nathan's point. And you're defending Flat Earth Math for misrepresenting stuff and saying that Nathan shouldn't have jumped down his throat. I don't agree with you, Arwin.
No, I wasn't referring to the video at all.
No, but you were referring to the arguments which were made in the Hangout, which were based on the video that Matt's lying about. That's why Nathan jumped down his throat. He's misrepresenting the truth intentionally to deceive people. That's why Nathan did what he did, and I agree with him completely. He's lying to people. He's letting people think stuff that's not true.
I mean, my biggest issue is with his positioning of the horizon and claiming that you can use it as a straight line measuring tool. And he said, without distortion on standard days. You're like, what the hell are you talking about? We've got, literally, the rumpus telling us that we've got refraction up the wazoo. It's the most non-standard day you could have. It's very exceptional conditions. Yet apparently, according to Flat Earth Math, why is it that we have no consensus from the ballers at the moment? None of them seem to know what the hell's going on, it would seem. Sly Sparkane doesn't think there's any land there. Rumpus does. Charles thinks we've got a perfect normal day and then we can take straight line accurate measurements from the horizon that's only apparent. None of them have got a consensus. None of them know what the hell's going on. They all claim they've got this wonderful model that predicts everything, yet here we are with a simple observation from about a foot off the sea line, and none of them know what the hell to do. None of them are here presenting arguments that are coherent. They are all presupposing their outcome, begging the question, basically. And none of them have got anything to actually account for this. And Charles is garbage. Well, you've not provided anything to debunk my fudged maths for how this calculation comes to pass. It's like, we don't need to. For a start, I've been there. I know exactly how bloody high it is. It's not 10 feet off that shoreline. It's absolutely preposterous. The fact that he's fudged the horizon to 3 miles and claimed some flat earthers believe it, find me one. Find me one, you disingenuous liar. Find me one flat earther that would insert a 3 mile globe supposition into a flat earth observation. You're not going to find one, Charles. You're just a liar.
And let me address this one point, because this is the thing that I didn't get to Charles yesterday. See how he's got in big letters here, viewer height critical to the calculation. And then the next thing he's showing here is this observer at 6 feet above the water, implying that that's where my video was taken from. It's not till here where he does acknowledge that it was taken on the sand, but he doesn't actually show the clip that I showed in the video, which was that it was taken literally on the sand. So Flat Earth Math is making people think that that elevation was nearer to 9 feet somehow, but actually what he didn't show is this bit. And what he should have shown is that the camera was mounted on that. And there is absolutely no way that is anywhere near. It's not even more than a foot.
Yeah,
So,
but I supported that yesterday as well. That was just bullshit.
I know,
that
but
was
that's
very obvious.
I'm
That
saying
was
that's
stupid.
in addition. That's in addition to what we've just been talking about, not in isolation. So he is lying. He's telling pork pies, and he's making people think what's going on. By the way, Rumpus, if you're out there listening, I agree with you that I misidentified the land initially. That's why I couldn't recognize it. But the reason wasn't because the land was wrong in some way. It's because the land, where it tapers off down here, there are two pieces of land that are here. One that's behind, and I don't think I'm seeing it. And there's the one in the foreground that I am seeing. That's why I didn't recognize it, because it didn't look like the plane. But he made this point up about a different point. But the reason why I didn't recognize it wasn't because it was compressed. The reason why I didn't recognize it was because it was a different shape. And I'm not seeing as far. I think that the other one behind it would be here, and it would be the plain nose cone. But I think I'm at the limit of the visibility that day, and I'm seeing the one that's in the foreground. Might be wrong, but that's why I didn't recognize it, Rumpus. But apparently they had a hangout last night. Rumpus, what's his face? What's the guy, the physicist PhD guy, Philip, Rumpus, Philip, and Sly, I believe they were supposed to have anyway. And I basically, the Rumpus and Philip don't think that there's an inferior mirage in the picture. Now, obviously, the Rumpus claim that there wouldn't be an inferior mirage, and I don't know what you're going to call all this stuff that's below the actual horizon, or at least the apparent horizon. But this definitely looks like an inferior mirage, and Rumpus expressly claimed that there wouldn't be one. So we've got the Rumpus making wrong predictions, but claiming that they were right somehow. We've got, but then we've got Sly Sparkane, who somehow he can't see the land that's over here, which he identified to be Bride. Fair play, but now he can't see this land. He plays funny buggers. Even though I stop at it and I zoom right in on it, he still can't see it. He pretends that there's not one there. And then the Rumpus shouts out that he's got it wrong. He what did he say? He misinterpreted the evidence. And I'm like, well, that's at least somewhat honest. So we've got Sly that can't see it. We've got Rumpus that denies or discredit or argues against Sly. For the sake of lying.
Hold on. I think something went wrong with the Nathan's.
I'm all good.
System.
Sorry, I don't know what happened, but I've sorted it out pretty quickly.
Is the link public?
Yeah, the link's public.
Oh, right, I didn't know.
The public show.
Let me open up the back door. But yeah, intellectual honesty needs to be the buzzword at the minute, because Sly literally pretends he can't see something that's blatantly obviously there. We've got the Rumpus that accepts that it's there and accepts that it's Bride, but doesn't accept that his predictions were wrong, and tries to pass them off as real. That's nonsense. And then we've got Flat Earth Math making up, just literally plucking random figures out of the sky. It's embarrassing for you ballers at the minute. Somebody come and explain to us why we see the land. Oh, by the way, that other point with regards to the horizon being at 3 miles, well, that horizon's actually at 34 miles, and that's at like a foot. But even if you gave it 9 feet, the curve math, don't give it to 34 miles at the horizon.
Hey, sir.
Check. 1, 2.
Hey.
Hey, sir.
Hello, what's up?
Yeah, the 3 mile value is actually on the curve calculation, and to use it immediately afterwards as part of the flat Earth maths, it's just outrageous.
Yeah.
Seems like there's people are just having trouble processing this idea of this presuppositional math. Like it hasn't quite sunk in yet, or something.
I think it has. I think that's pretty clear now what that is.
Well, they can't admit to
you
it.
guys have defined it pretty well, and we are getting responses. Now it's up to us to basically let them bring their work, like what is your current project, what is the math that you use, that you believe in, that you actually use, that you do not disapprove of, show it to me. And then when they do, then you find the R if it's in there. And then you point that out. That is what we should be doing, not just saying you believe in R. That is what inquisitors do. Okay? It's like shoving things towards people like, yeah, but we know you have sinned. Like, what? I didn't even tell you anything.
Well, no, I think Nathan just assumed that flat earth math would understand what he, I mean, it's,
yeah,
I think
yeah, but that is my point. That is my point.
No, but he really should understand.
It's a presumption.
No, but he really should understand that, right? Like we, you know, like we shouldn't have to spoon feed him everything, right? The guy is a math teacher. The guy has math in his name. He claims to have, you know, math credibility.
Yeah, but math teachers have many flaws, especially when
it
comes to insight. So
I think he's trying to pull a fast one on his, you know, I think he's just trying to use sophistry, mathematical sophistry.
Hey, Chocolate.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Morning.
I just
what's
wanted
up, guys?
Hey, what's up, man? I think there's like a kind of a fundamental understanding, a fundamental misunderstanding about the whole subject of refraction and light. Going over, like, you know,
I'm perfectly willing to rename that refraction into scintillation. Was it?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the first time I heard of that term. Like, I just used refraction because that was basically the counter argument, the counter refraction to the ball refraction concept.
Yeah, I just want to finish what I was saying because I kind of have
That's okay.
sort of prefacing a thought there, which is that, you know, we talk about it like what we're looking at is refraction, right? But really what we're looking at is optical distortion, right? We're seeing the results of what is refraction, but it's just that the refraction is happening on a microscopic level, right? It's not happening like they're trying to make it seem like it's like water going through a glass and then coming out the other side, right? Like it's like these clean kind of continuations of the light path. But really, what I've been gleaning from reading these physical test-based papers about the phenomena of scintillation is that, yeah, that's the scintillation is the result of refraction, but the refraction is happening in air. It's happening on a microscopic scale, which basically like averages out. And so when we see something, we don't see refraction, we see optical turbulence. We see millions and millions and millions of instances of separate refractions, of separate light rays, right? That get distorted and mixed up. And it's like this idea that an entire island or an entire image is all going to be uniformly refracted through the medium of air, which is like a giant chaotic mass.
But it should be to a certain extent. But when it's not uniform, then you get the whole blurry, wobbly, you know, the animated parts. That is.
It is never uniform. It has no.
That's when it's not uniform. But mostly it is, and you still have the slant effect.
No, inherently
it's very direct. It's not random at all. So
no, it's really inherently not uniform. Like if you look into the kinetic theory of gases, which is, you know, a theory and a model, but basically is the model that is the theoretical model that's used to create engineering, you know, to create machines and to create the one that basically has applications and gets results. Gas is inherently not uniform. I mean, the word gas itself means chaos.
Yeah, like, I get that, but still, when light passes through, you have a spectral working in the sense that when light passes through, it's not gonna like bounce all over the place like it's a giant collection of chaotic mirrors or something. No, it's gonna pick an average and then lens distort through that average.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Find its path, and that's not really that random at all. Because when you average it all out, eventually,
you're misunderstanding.
Distributed and the heat, it is not that chaotic at all.
No, you're misunderstanding what I'm meaning by random. It's just that the direction in which it's going to deviate is going to be random. It's not going to be up or down or side or any kind of direction.
Yeah, but,
combination.
no, but I kind of disagree, because why else do you then have the slant effect, which is well established, whatever the cause may be, whether that
Well, the
be
slant
the
effect
refraction
is
that I
caused by-
mentioned is, or this scintillation, what causes
the
that
slant-
very
the slant
specific
effect
slant?
is something
What is
completely.
that?
That's caused by diffraction from the surface.
Okay, so explain that to me then.
Well, it's basic. Okay, I don't know. It's kind of difficult to explain without diagrams, but it's that the angle of the light that's coming in on the bottom half of your vision along the ground, the angles become so steep of the angles of reflection from like whatever the target object is become so steep, and the reflections become so bunched up together at in such a tiny area of angular. Fuck, sorry, I'm not. It's hard to explain this, but it's like they become so bunched up together in such a tiny angle, and then the fact that they're like the kind of diffuse reflections that are happening off the surface, like say the water or the ground, are actually causing them to become jumbled up or even inverted at times, right? And then that's what's creating that slant effect. So I think the slant effect is not even created by refraction, it's created by
diffraction. Okay, fine. Diffraction, that's good for me. I'm just looking at that specific effect because that is what the ballers constantly try to shove in our faces is supposed to be the curve. It's always that. It's always that very specific effect. And it is an effect. And it seems to be tied in with perspective itself, because if you move high up, then the apparent slant moves away from you. This is very specific.
Yeah.
So,
well, this is what I'm saying. I think that we both we're all figuring this out, and I think that there's a number of kind of like I was starting off by saying like fundamental misunderstandings about these subjects, like that
it's very hard to find your way. There are so many optical effects. It's really hard to basically. It's almost like finding a new type of plant, and then using the like. There's this lore where you basically figure out what a plant is based on its shapes and on its growth patterns. And we're basically trying to do something like that with optics. And there's a lot of different optical effects. And then figuring out like, what is it actually we're doing, right? What are we trying what are we seeing here? It's not that straightforward.
Absolutely. And it's still a very, very much an active area of research among engineers primarily. So what I've been trying to look at is not so much theories of light and kind of quantum physical type stuff where they're trying to account for the particles, but just like looking at people who are trying to design camera correction software and things like that, who do practical tests. So people who end up requiring to have some kind of practical understanding of the behavior of light in order to apply it to some kind of function. Because then, it's these engineers who really figure out, they don't figure out necessarily the causal explanation, but they figure out what's going on, right? Because they're trying to work around it. They're trying to correct or exploit various physical properties of the world. So, it really pays to kind of look at a lot of their work as well, because like I say, like they're not going to come up with a necessarily, a kind of final causal theory, but
they need to account for the effects to get things accurate.
Yeah, exactly. So I was looking, like that paper that I posted yesterday that we were looking at, where they're figuring out how to cancel optical turbulence over long distances by using, statistically averaging the distortion over a number of different frames and things like that. So that's a pretty credible kind of concept.
Can you really like it's a distortion effect? So, but if you say it is chaotic, then there is no way to account for it except for artificial, like in Photoshop, you up the contrast because the distortion. You can't undo chaotic distortion.
No, but they can figure out like what the mean average distortion is, right? So like, say if you take
of course, you can always do that.
Yeah, I know, but that's what I'm
hard.
saying.
It's just averaging out.
I know,
So-
but that's what they did, right? Like
Okay.
that's what
She
that
said-
paper. I mean, that's what that paper was about. It was like trying to figure out how they could compensate for the optical turbulence at a long distance, and they were successful in doing it because what they figured out is that the optical turbulence is based on, you know, you've got your variables are like whatever the conditions of the air are between you and the target image and the distance, and then basically the thing will the fluctuations are random. Other than that, in the sense that it randomly fluctuates in all directions, but the amount of fluctuation is just based on the conditions of the air and the distance. So then if they just look at enough frames, there's going to be enough frames where the light just came in a straight line that they can just push back all the distortions and restore the image. Like, you know, when you're looking through, like you're looking at footage through like maximum zoom P900 and you just see all that like weird wiggly kind of undulation of the pixels. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the true effect of refraction in the air.
Okay.
I agree.
Yeah, it's like the miraging. It's the blurring out.
Well,
It's
like yeah, but
the band where it gets all wiggly.
No, it's wiggly everywhere. I'm just saying that I'm still trying to figure this out. Like
Okay, I'm looking now at the definition of diffraction, and what it basically describes here is an effect of light bending around the corner. It is what made the original camera work, basically, because it can bend an entire image through the hole and then spread it around. It is basically a wave-like effect of light, standard wave effect.
Yeah.
It could be that the optical slant is indeed caused by diffraction, but
okay, well,
that's pretty hard to figure out. I need to see more specific data.
Yeah, that's
that
a pretty
applies to that.
limited. That's an overly limited definition of diffraction. I mean, in the broadest sense, like diffraction just it more talks about like light that moves, that's basically passing close over a surface and how it behaves. Like,
You need to show me something about that. I think
okay.
that because
Well,
I think it's very important for us as well.
Yeah.
To really get this perfectly defined, because that is the apparent curvature there. That is what they're always going to shove in our faces as the real curve, and we need to get it perfect. I want to get it perfect. So
I didn't want to get into diffraction too much today, but I'm working on it, and I'm planning on trying to present some information, like, because I'm trying to develop like a more clear picture of like this stuff, how it's happening, you know, what's really happening. Like, what we really need to think about is like, we're thinking about photons or whatever light is coming from where the target object to the camera. So it's just like, if we can figure out what's happening to a given photon between the target image, between the target object and the camera, like actually
it is clearly tied in with perspective. It seems to be a physical part of perspective, as so much footage of all types have even proven, like the football field footage that Nathan presented, or an object. When you put a camera on a table and you move the object away, it does the same thing. It happens every time. There is like an apparent slant, which can be misinterpreted as a curvature of some kind when it obviously is not. And this is the effect. This is the specific effect that causes the Earth to seem curved at sea.
Well, I think
we need to figure that out. What is that? And it's part of perspective, but how does it actually work?
Well, I think it's the effect of diffraction, like I'm saying.
Yeah,
like,
that's good, but I'd like to see more worked out models for that, basically how that works. Then.
Well, I'm working on trying to research it, and I don't want to say too much about it now, so that I don't put my foot in my mouth. But
no, that's fine. Keep me up to date with any findings.
Yeah, I think we're looking at some separate kind of effects that are happening for different reasons, and that it's actually a pretty complex picture to understand. You know, like the kind of footage that has a number of different things going on.
Right, I'm just trying to intersect a little bit. I was having a conversation with Ruhif, and he accepts that that's the flat Earth equivalent of the 76R. In other words, 76R is a website, and it's based on this this notion that Well, when I was speaking to Rivif, he said, well, that would be right, just a model, right? And I was like, well, yeah, but it's equivalent to what you guys use. And he's like, yeah, but Nathan said you can't use models. And I said, I agree. He says, so what value is it? I said, it's equal to, but no better than your own. Well, yeah, but if Nathan won't let us use models, and I said, I agree, but at least it is equal to, it is the flat earth equivalent of. And I agree with you, scintillation is better than refraction. Stop using refraction and
Well,
use scintillation instead.
Yeah, the difference is that we have some amount of physical evidence that about scintillation, right? Like there's a scintillometer that's used. It's a tool. Like we can, and there's various tests that have been performed that have shown like that have been used to measure the effects of optical turbulence. Where the 7.6R, there's no physical evidence. There's no test for it. There's no application of it beyond supporting the assumption that the Earth is a globe, right? Like there's no independent variable that can be. I mean, I understand that it's going to be contentious for me to say that this is a scientific experiment. What they're doing with you guys, with the in terms of like that optical distortion, reversing the optical turbulence effect over by averaging out frames, but at the same time, the fact that you can do that is telling us something, that there's a tangibility to it, right? Like we can control the distance of the target object and we can have some idea of the air conditions. But if we get the results, then it's showing that there's some kind of, sorry. You're roboting, dude.
No less.
Right, Anthony, is it me that's roboting?
No, it's Anthony.
No more.
Anthony, you gotta rejoin, man. You're incoherent.
I don't think he heard it because he's roboting and talking at the same time.
Yeah. Okay, maybe I'll just send him a Skype.
Anthony, we can't hear you.
It's come out.
He's still talking. He doesn't know we can't hear him yet. Hello, McFly. Hey, Issa.
Yo. Check 1 2. What up, gentlemen? Yo, real quick, while the lull in the optical phenomenon talk is happening, and gases being chaotic. That's interesting. But let me just say this: shout out to Flat Earth Math. He was on. He had joined me last night. We were talking about, and the thing you have to also take into consideration is something that's lovely about Flat Earth Math. Aside for his R for the win, demonstration, I guess, is the idea that he's willing to accept that Coriolis doesn't affect gunshots. Did you guys know that?
Doesn't affect anything. No, we're not spinning, so
Yeah,
well, no, I mean, but it's interesting to hear like someone who is so adamant about, let's say, like this particular set of mathematics, being willing to concede that it's an old wives' tale, that guns, taking the shot or using like calculating Coriolis is part of shooting, for snipers or long range, which I thought was interesting. Had you guys known that about Flat Earth Math before?
No, but it sounds like he's on the verge of becoming a flat earther.
Well, he has got to be one of the kindest, sweetest debaters out here. And so I just, in his own, I heard him kind of getting a little bit of a bashing earlier, and I just feel inclined to, just to speak up on his behalf, because he's always been a sweetheart. He's always been a good guy, and he's always willing to discuss the mathematics. Now, I know you're trying to drive home the point about R, and that may be another issue. I'm loving, shout out to R for the win, though.
Yeah, well, the guy, yeah, sure. He's got this like nice guy little persona thing, but the guy's a weasel. Like, let's be honest. Like, I've tried to talk to him.
Hold on. So, no, he's just really a cold-hearted fucking liar.
I'm trying not to swear.
The guy's a weasel. Like, the guy is a sophist. He misrepresents, like, he misquotes and misrepresents what people say all over the place. He doesn't like debate or argue in a honest and straightforward fashion. He's just dodging questions. Like, I just think that he's just trying to, he's succeeding obviously in like buying some kind of weird credibility just by being polite, but who cares? Who cares if he's polite? He's not honest. The guy's a weasel. The guy acts.
I've had many a debate with Flat Earth Math. Me and Cathexis used to go in. We've had good discussions with Flat Earth Math, and he won't concede on certain points. I'll give you that much. But I will say that there are points of concession that are quite interesting about the brother. For instance, like I said about some of that Coriolis stuff.
That is interesting.
So yeah. So I think like yeah, I you're right to point out that a lot of the calculations involve that presupposition of R. But I also did find it odd that
hey Arif, is that you? Is that really you, Arif? Hello.
No.
Hello.
Hi.
Not Arif.
Where's Anthony?
PC issues, I think.
Oh, sorry.
He's rolling around. He's rolling around the beach. In the sand. He's like that movie Grease. You ever seen Grease where they're rolling around? It's like him and John Travolta and freaking whatever.
Yeah, he's covered in sand.
Yeah, he's like summer loving happened so fast. Yeah,
he's like a dead marine mammal that's washed up on the shore.
Oh God, I love. Yeah, he's there with a P900 in his pocket. You're like, what? Is that a P900 in your pocket or what?
Yeah. Just happy to see me.
But yeah, I do think I don't know what's up with the idea, because he was thinking, from what I gathered, was that Flat Earth Math thought he was at 9 feet. You know what I mean? And I thought that was a little much, taking into consideration the image and the zoom back from where he was right on the sand.
Well, that's what I mean about Flat Earth being a weasel. Like, the guy's clearly not at 9 feet. I mean, that's just preposterous, right? So this is what I'm saying. It's like, okay, this guy, he's a nice guy or whatever. Oh, hello, everyone. I'm Mr. Nice Guy. But then he's just like make up stuff all over.
Right, but they say that same thing about Riley.
Oh, I don't care what they say about Riley.
I would rather
talk to someone who's honest and authentic and a bit of an asshole than someone who, is trying to.
You gotta admit that 9 feet was a little extra.
It's outrageous.
Where the hell did he get 9 feet from?
Well, he got it from claiming that. I can tell you exactly where he got it. He got it from claiming that some flat earthers, let's see these flat earthers line up and declare that they think, like globers think, that the horizon happens to be 3 miles away. Because obviously these flat earthers know that there's a bulge on a flat plane, right? Putting the horizon at 3 miles, right, Charles? Yeah, you line up these flat earthers that support your absolute garbage assertion that puts this camera height at 9 foot because you have a horizon at 3 miles. Because some flat earthers believe that garbage, do they, Charles? Yeah, let's see them line up.
Yeah, and you see how shitty that argument is anyway. So it's like, what if we can find a flat earther who's willing to say that, then that somehow lends some credence to his argument? No, it doesn't. It's ridiculous. It's still just stupid. I mean, Anthony laid it out pretty clearly. So why do we have to argue with what some, hypothetical idiot flat earther might say about it? It's just, but that's the kind of tactics that Flat Earth Math relies on in order to hang in there with his crap, Anyway, so yeah, whatever. I'm sure he's separately from the whole topic of flat Earth, I'm sure he's a nice enough guy, whatever he could.
Well, there's an outstanding challenge. So, Charles, if you're listening, you've still got an outstanding challenge. Prove R.
I just don't like his weaselly tactics with arguing. I think that he should. I think like it's below him, really, that he shouldn't be acting like that. I mean, the guy's intelligent enough to at least debate properly.
Hello.
Hey, what's up, Anthony?
Am I working?
Yeah, you're working now.
Yeah, I don't know what was wrong with it. Yeah, there's an outstanding challenge still for Paul Voigt as well to provide evidence for the molten iron core self-perpetuating its own charge and magnetic field. So that's outstanding for him. Let's not forget about that one.
Or the non-physical container that keeps the pressurized system of Earth next to the vacuum of space. So non-physical container, that's an outstanding unaddressed issue with Sphere Earth.
Yeah, we were talking about that last, or well, I was talking with Math about the dissipation idea and the idea of the dissipation of the atmosphere, and how that same concept could work on a level plane. It doesn't have to be something like it's not exclusive to because we were kind of talking. Hey, what's up, Roman?
Sorry,
We were
I
talking about how helium. I don't know if you're familiar with that kind of discussion about but to talk about pressure and stuff. But I don't want to digress or anything. But like the way that helium, if it cools and becomes a liquid at a certain temperature, could there be this kind of, or even the idea that imagine if what we perceive to be zero pressure, i.e., a vacuum, is actually like indicative of some other effect. And this is where I had a bit of a hiccup, like the idea that we don't really know let's say they say like gravity is almost like an effect of something. You know what I mean? It's almost a weak force versus, you know what I mean? It's like it could be a potential weak force from something like in the ball earth. It's the idea that dark matter may be somehow like gravity is the weak force of dark matter, if I'm not mistaken.
No, that's the tricky, sir.
No,
So what you're
supposed to be
how it works.
You're describing an
Dark matter
effect.
is the
You even said it. Sorry, I just want to squeeze this
need.
in. So you're describing an effect, and then you're calling it a cause, a force. Well, it's not. It's an effect.
No. Right, and that's what I'm trying to say is that the idea, like even the idea of a vacuum could be the effect, not the cause. Like like somehow, I don't know how.
No.
It could be some.
Well, no, a
Just
vacuum
no,
is
huh?
a vacuum.
Just fucking no, right?
Just no.
No, it has nothing to do with it. It has to do with air redistribution, that kind of thing. Gravity, or the gravitational pull theory, is based on the weight, the pulling effect of matter. It has nothing to do with the actual distribution.
Actually, okay, the way that
pressure distribution.
Hey, Matrix.
Hey, what's going on?
Good to have you. Got a bit of a twitchy hangout, so.
Who dropped? Everyone okay?
No, me. Yeah, no, we've just got. I've dropped once in this show, so.
Got it. I got it. Somebody peeing. Watch out. Hot mic.
Hey, guys, I thought of something. I don't know if anybody asked themselves.
I said this in another show, but I think that it's important that people understand that what gravity really means ultimately is just a generalized attraction between masses that follows the inverse square law. That's actually all gravity is. Like, that's all that gravity has ever been understood to be.
Numi, take a breath and let Matrix say something.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Does anybody know what the globals classify stars in the sun? Like, what are they?
Sorry.
All right, and they're bright, and we could see them
Distant suns.
Yeah, we could see them from all the way over here, right? How is it that the entire, the space or whatever, how is it dark? How is it not lit up, the entire thing, if we could see them from billions?
In theory, that is also has a specific cause, and that is that the vacuum doesn't have any matter, like air, to be lit up by that light.
Yeah.
You ever see?
So how are we seeing the stars in the first place?
Yeah, that's a good point, because they're way too distant anyway. So
that's what I'm saying. Like, if the vacuum is restraining whatever, the rays or whatever, how are we seeing the dot in the first place?
That is a separate effect. Light can still move through vacuum. You can emulate that.
Oh, by the way, that reminds me.
Explain how you can see it at that type of distance, because
that was the turning point. That very point.
It's logical for the sun not to cover the entire space and light it up.
I don't know about covering the whole light, but I'd say the reverse of that is true, which is a point that Helioskeptic made. Big shout out to Helioskeptic if you're watching. I was watching your live stream the other day. Hope you're doing well with Voice Meter Banana. Anyway, he made a point, and Anthony pointed out to me that while he was asking, I think it was Paper Explanator, about the inverse square law versus the distance to these stars, and essentially he was pointing out, or Helioskeptic was pointing out, that they don't obey the inverse square law. They're too distant. And he had him on the ropes about it. But it got obfuscated, completely obfuscated. And the killer blow was when Paper Explanator essentially had to confess to the assumption of the distance to the sun, which is where it all begins. That's the first presupposition in that part of the heliocentric model. It's an assumption. The distance is guessed. So he pointed that out, but it got completely obfuscated for about an hour and 20 minutes or something ludicrous before the actual question came to a head. So that was what Anthony pointed out to me and said, you know, letting people see how globe heads obfuscate flat earthers is all well and good, but we could actually be driving these points home rather than letting them obfuscate them, and that's where I changed my opinion and attitude on the show. But there you go, nice little story.
Or Matrix, just to answer your question a little bit more, like basically, hold on, light is invisible until it hits something. Like if you look at a laser beam from the side, you don't see anything, you just see where it's hitting. So the idea is that in a vacuum or where there's an area that's entirely free of particles, basically there's no way of, like, theoretically it's just absolutely saturated with photons.
All right, but
what I'm saying is
not
entirely true. No, but that's only when you see it from the side, because you can still see the laser if it's actually pointing in your eye, no matter.
Yeah, that's of course, because it's hitting your eye. That's exactly what I'm saying. But I'm saying
but that does kind of explain then how light cannot be seen in the vacuum, not light up the vacuum, but still as it reaches you, you can see it.
Yeah, exactly.
But still, there is this massive distance, and light eventually just becomes.
Oh, I totally
invisible.
agree with that. I mean, I don't think the stars are gazillions of you know, astronomical units away or whatever. Or,
obviously
not.
No, what I think.
Otherwise, you would still see them if you go up really high.
I'm just trying to explain that light, like why? Because I think what he's asking is why is there all this black area between the stars?
Exactly.
Well, no, the answer is because of solar bioluminescence.
No, but if there's as many stars as they tell us there is, why? The question is valid. Why is there any darkness up there?
Why is there any darkness in the first place? Exactly.
Why isn't the sky completely filled with stars?
That explain that logically ever.
Yeah, I agree. Hey guys, let me share something with you that I found out last night that was really quite interesting. There's always this ongoing argument about the idea that the ether has never been proven to exist, right? Well, what happens if you put a plasma ball inside a vacuum chamber? Will the plasma ball, will it work?
No.
What do you think?
No, plasma is also plasma still applies the whole redistribution. It is like matter. It is like gas. It will then immediately dissipate.
Yeah, it's like another state of matter, right? It's like one.
It's beyond gas.
It's beyond gas. So for plasma to exist in some kind of contained area, like if there's going to be some sort of boundary layer, there still needs to be pressure for plasma.
Well, not pressure, but matter.
No, well, pressure caused by matter, presumably a gas. Like for instance, like a fire is plasma, right? That's what fire is. What's containing the fire within a certain boundary? It's the air.
Yeah,
pressure.
So you're right. A plasma ball won't fire when it's in a vacuum chamber. But what happens if you apply external power from inside the vacuum chamber? Can you get it to arc? In other words, if you provide the power inside and force it to arc, will it work? And the answer is yeah, it does.
It does.
Which then means two things.
Has this been shown?
Yeah. I'll put links in the side chat. In fact, I might even put it on. In fact, I will put it on, but I'll explain it first. If you power it externally, but inside the vacuum chamber, you can get it to fire, right? Which means one of two things. It means that one of two states is true. Either we are on a ball, but the electric universe is a thing because it would be feeding the core of the Earth, providing its molten state and its electricity and its magnetism, and it would be exactly the way it says on Wikipedia. That the core of the Earth is self-perpetuated by an induced electric force. In other words, electric universe is really a thing.
Yeah, like a lamp, basically.
I don't know. How are you getting all
the gas? Just like the electric universe is based on the theory that there is electricity everywhere, basically, or some kind of force that is like electricity that lights up, well, the sun and all other things, just like a gas lamp. Or specific types of lamps. When you electrify them, then the gas lights up. That is the base foundation of that theory of the electric.
I don't find that to be an agreeable idea myself. I don't really understand how that. But what? Okay, so but what are you? You're saying that because that they can. I don't know. I want to know more specifically what you mean. Okay, so this is plasma.
Right. If we put a plasma ball inside a vacuum chamber, what happens to the plasma ball? And the answer is when the air is exhausted out of the chamber, it won't work. It will not fire anymore. It requires the air as a medium to pass through, which is kind of what the ether is. The ether is a medium for which light can propagate through. But when it drops its vacuum ability and it removes most of the air and it gets to a tipping point, it then will no longer fire, which kind of indicates by negative proof that that the ether must exist. Otherwise, you wouldn't get light or any matter passing through it. It kind of requires air for it to work. Do you see that?
Yeah, but I don't know. But I would almost be inclined to think that even a very near vacuum might be enough particles for it to still work. I don't know.
Well, it would be working. I mean, now he's released. At this point, he's released some of the vacuums.
But it didn't show when it was in a vacuum, did it?
Yeah, it
Electricity does. If you want
look,
literal
look.
electricity conduction, you do need a conductor.
Shush, wait a sec. Can you see the needle on the vacuum the vacuum meter? It shows the needles in that position. But when he releases the vacuum and then it goes up, then it starts to work. So what it's showing...
Can you go to show me the pressure where it's supposedly in a vacuum, or like what's?
I don't know what reading it is. I don't suppose it matters what the reading is. What he said, he probably says it in it. I didn't listen to what was being said for the value, but what he's showing on the screen is that as the variable, which is the vacuum, as the vacuum is created, it will work for a point and then kick off once it gets below a certain point, and then when you put it back
but does that's good, because that just means that for electricity to be visual, at least it has to have some kind of medium that makes it visible. But still, with the vacuum, is the electricity still conducting, or is it not? Because that doesn't say that. This is just a visual aspect.
The air is a dielectric, right? So it's creating a sort of bounding structure for the arcs.
Yeah, but my question is there still a connection? Is there still electric connection with the vacuum?
No, when the vacuum's there, it doesn't work.
Yeah, that makes
stated. Is that stated with the experiment? Because you can see it when there is air in there, at least. But is there literally no connection when there is not?
This is very...
You mean a connection that we can't see? That's what you mean, Arwen?
What I'm saying is that if there's air in there, then obviously you can see the arcs of the electricity passing through, lighting up the gas.
Don't think about it in terms of electricity.
Without the gas, is there still a connection, or is there none? Is there literally no connection?
So we've got about an hour left on this live stream. I hope you're all enjoying the debate thus far. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside the show while it's live, and a link in the info box below the video once it's rendered. But most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show. Massive thanks to all who have done so already. Sharing the show increases the live audience, of course, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. I'm also going to plug my show, which will be on Wednesday, 1 PM Central, and I think it is around 8 PM or 7 PM UK time, with Quantum Eraser, where we'll be going through various different things, which will hopefully shed some light on light. So tune into that. I'll plug it a few more times, maybe at the end of this show, and on a couple of the others as well. So be sure to tune in to that on Wednesday. As I say, there is approximately 1 hour left on this live stream.
I'm asking you to disregard that, because that's not really the point I'm making. The point I'm making is that light, in the form of electricity or whatever you want it to be, plasma or whatever, needs a medium for it to go through, the ether. So if you have a vacuum in space, the light will not travel.
No, I don't.
Even if the electricity does.
No, that's not it. No.
That's not what we're seeing in the experiment, Anthony. There's not.
Well,
That's
it
not
is.
a
No,
strong-
electricity for electricity to be able to cause light locally, it does need a medium. It does need gas to light
Right.
up. That does not mean that it does not conduct. That is what I'm interested
No,
in.
no, we can.
Right.
We can.
I'm not saying whether it conducts
No,
or
I
not.
know that you're not saying that, but that is what I am interested in.
Yeah.
Does it
What-
still
what-
conduct?
Again,
no
though, the point I'm making is that it requires the atmosphere to be there for us to see the light. If that bit doesn't go in with you and resonate, then there's no point in me even
No, but
going on, because
light
the other
can
part of
still
it.
travel, like as light beam can still travel through a vacuum. It just
Evidently not.
it won't light up locally.
Hold on, I've got to interrupt you,
a
right?
gas
So
if
if you're
it's
saying
not-
light can't travel through this vacuum, how the hell can we see the stuff behind? It would all vanish as soon as you remove the air.
Correct.
And that's what I'm saying.
What do you mean? You're saying it's me?
Well, that was my point. That was my point.
I'm
Now,
with-
how
I'm
are
with
we
you.
seeing these dots in the first place?
I'm with you. I'm with you on it. If space existed, we would never see any of the stars because the light wouldn't be propagating through the material, because they say it's a vacuum, and this is proof that light. Forget the electricity part; whether it's flowing or not is irrelevant. The light doesn't propagate through it
No,
unless
that's
there's
not
something
true.
there.
No, that's
it
not
does.
true.
No,
No, you
no.
can still see through it,
You're
right?
looking,
Still see
you're
through
looking at it right
Can
now.
you still see through it? That
Can still
means
see
that light
through
is
it.
traveling from one side
Right.
of that sphere to the other. So light does definitely travel through a vacuum.
Correct.
Just doesn't light up the particles within it.
But
You're
the
mixing,
light,
like
the
Anthony.
light
you're
from a
mixing-
star, you can imagine this being the star in the middle, right? And you can see that the light, when there's no vacuum there, it doesn't emit any light for us to see.
Yeah,
No,
but
but
there's
there's
light
no
traveling
local
through that
chemical reaction
vacuum,
in that
hitting that
location.
black little ball, and we can still see it. So light's definitely getting to my eyes from that ball,
Yeah.
regardless of what the plasma is doing.
Exactly, that is my point.
Yeah,
Okay.
Anthony,
Light can still
all right.
travel
No,
through
no,
a vacuum, but
Anthony,
it will not light up the materials
Anthony,
there
wait. Okay,
locally.
this is the simplest. Wait. The simplest way of expressing this is that a vacuum is the best insulator in the universe. That's what this experiment is showing. Is that
There is a second. There is a
It doesn't
second
show
video.
that. Insulator is electricity based, and that question is not answered. Anthony,
No, it is. That's why
the
the-
point. No, it is not.
yes,
No, it's not.
yeah, it absolutely is, because he's saying it won't generate these arcs when in vacuum.
No, but the arc is only a
It's-
visual aspect of it. It's not.
Yes, I
it's
know,
not
but it's
said
not-
if there is no conduction at all, or if
yeah,
there is.
no conduction at all.
Okay, well, can I see some proof of that? Do you have some scientific proof that electricity does not conduct through a vacuum? I'd like to see that. It could be. I'm
That's the-
keeping that question open.
Can you see what's on my screen now?
Yeah.
So what this guy's setting up now is basically an arc. So he's creating a charge that's going to pass between the 2 points, and then he's going to put it inside the vacuum, but then power it from inside the vacuum. So watch what happens.
Cool.
You're conflating electricity and light.
I am, but the point I'm making is on light, not on electricity.
No, but what the demonstration? Look, electricity causes energy to basically be absorbed by matter, and that causes light.
Yeah, it's
Doesn't mean that
ionization.
light cannot pass through a vacuum, because that's a separate issue.
Yeah, but we're talking about ionization when we're talking about gases, right? And so if there's nothing to ionize, then the fact that there's nothing to ionize is what makes a vacuum a true vacuum a perfect insulator. So that's why you can't create those arcs, because there's no possibility of any air particles becoming ionized between them and the
Okay,
negative.
so you're stating that a perfect vacuum is also a perfect insulator. Insulator, sorry.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It has to be, because there's no particles. So how are you going to?
Hey,
There's
if
nothing.
you
There's
say
no way
so.
for you.
I'm not too sure about that. I'd like to see more definitive
Yeah, that's
evidence
true.
of that, but could be. I
Well-
find it. Yeah, I can assume that.
We've just seen it on
Can go with
screen.
that.
You can prevent charge flow by having a gap. You need matter in order to continue to have an electric charge flow, but that could include a gas, because gas particles can become ionized.
But I wonder then, is there any limit? Because you could have like two iron wires very, very close up to each other, like with 2 millimeters distance, if it is in a perfect vacuum, will there still be an arc of electricity in an absolute perfect vacuum, or will there not be?
No, but that gets down to where we're talking about where the surfaces of materials have very different properties than the inside of the, like say inside the wire is very different than the surface of the wire. On the surface of the wire, that's where electrons are jumping off, right? So like there's like an active surface of moving electrons, of flowing electrons over the surface. See, this is exactly what I'm talking about diffraction and about lens, like these conversations that I was having with Quantum Eraser before about like pinhole cameras and lensing and things like that, where it's like the surfaces of materials have completely different properties and that can interact with light. Then you know, it's like, so yeah, I mean, if you had the two wires close enough together inside the vacuum, then you could, then the ion on the surface could still create an electric, will basically join together, and like it will basically join the two wires but invisibly, so they'll become like one object, but you won't be able to see it.
Okay, that is pretty bizarre.
Yeah, it is
that
bizarre.
Means that if the tension is strong enough, then it could even bridge a giant perfect vacuum gap.
Well, yeah, but it's going to fall off. Yeah, but the electric current is going to, like, similarly to the other like light and things like that, it's going to fall off at the inverse of the square of the distance, meaning that the distance that it's only going to be a very tiny amount of distance that it will work.
Well, but if you then increase that tension, then that distance will probably enlarge. But that just means that it doesn't always need a material conductor to pass through. It can actually, if the tension is strong enough, that the electrons themselves, kind of like ants climbing up on each other, will form a connection despite there not being any material conducting it.
Yeah,
that is pretty bizarre.
Well, that's how a pinhole camera works. So that we know that happens, right? Like we know that there's like electric fields can be created between surfaces. Like that's well established through a number of experiments.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, it is. It's really
it does kind of give legitimacy to the electric universe concept.
Kind of, although
yeah, because it can still then conduct. Because if
you guys
figured out how then it could never work.
The electric universe is still trapped in this heliocentrism.
Yeah, I know, but it's just as a physical concept, basically.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's just a stopgap measure to keep people in the heliocentric cult, to be honest.
It is a centralization of basically a local electric universe concept. Like it can still apply here on Earth. I think there is probably some legitimacy to it, as in
but then they have
what causes the globe of the heavens. It is probably somehow electrically related.
But they still believe in the vacuum of space.
Yeah, I know. That's why I said it's a heliocentralization of
but how does the electric
things.
Universe theory work when everything is separated by the best conductor and the best insulator in the universe? I don't know. To me, honestly, even before I was a flat earther, I felt like the whole electric universe thing didn't make any sense.
Well, I actually feel quite the opposite. I thought that it was a very legitimate different approach to the heliocentric universe that could theoretically make it work a lot better.
To me, like right on its face, it just doesn't make any sense because we're talking about a giant vacuum.
I agree. I agree with both of you. I think Arwin's right, because there is a lot of credibility in some of the stuff the electric universe people say. I know you're right, Nami, it does have its roots in heliocentricity. However, I do think there's a lot of truth in what they say.
Okay, I don't know. Maybe you're right. I'm just saying, based on my research into it, I don't see that truth. Like I feel
especially when you consider it as a supplement to gravity, because look at how ridiculous gravity is.
Yeah.
And I don't mean the gravity that Arwen's talking about. I mean just like gravitational pull and orbital mechanics and all of that. I mean, look how ridiculous that is.
Yeah,
it
they're
is.
So
grasping at straws.
Gravitational pull is complete science fiction to give some kind of causal explanation as to the downward acceleration force that I persistently still call gravity.
Yeah, I don't know what part of the electric universe is credible. Like, I don't really understand.
Well, probably that there is an electric field here within the Earth. That part is probably true, and it is probably also tied in with how the globe of the heavens functions.
Sure. Well, we
Like
know
what
that
lights that up? What actually causes the sun to be what it is, whatever it is?
Well, we
Right.
know we're in a like an electric. There's an electric field around the Earth, or that we're in an electric field, but
Yes.
it's not the electric Earth theory. It's the electric universe theory.
Yeah,
right?
I know. But as I
So
said,
what do they think, that between like galaxies there's some kind of electrical force?
that
I
is
don't know.
the theory.
Thing is,
that is the
Nami,
theory.
you're
They
gonna
basically
win these
Well, that's
arguments.
migrate the whole electric field
sorry,
that
but
is here
that's
on
just-
Earth into the entire universe. That's what they did
I'm
with that.
sorry, but that's stupid. That's a dumb theory. That's a really
No, no,
Yeah.
it is just a heliocentralization of a very legitimate
No,
theory
I'm
that
saying
can be
that-
applied
that-
locally.
That somehow what's attracting, like if we go back to the original universe model, and like to say that what's attracting galaxies or what's repelling galaxies and what's attracting stars and keeping them in a galactic configuration and all of that is somehow electricity is just stupid.
What it does, the electric universe, what it does is it basically migrates a lot of causality from the gravitational pole theory, which is very messy, into a more electrical setup, which
Well, that's not
theoretically
going to
work a
help.
lot better.
What doesn't help at all? I mean, it's like we're a slightly
It
less-
helps them. It helps them make a
doesn't help
slightly
them.
less hole-riddled theory.
No, it doesn't help at all. It's a giant vacuum. You can't. It's a friggin'
No, but we
Yeah,
just
but
established that
number,
does-
you
that-
gotta
that
admit
doesn't matter.
I fucking
there's
hate
something about there's got to be something about electricity. I mean, look at how even the human body like runs on
There's
electricity.
something about
People
electricity.
people are brought back to life with electricity. Like
Yeah,
there's got to be something about it.
Yeah, there's something about electricity, but
There's electrical activity in all life forms.
Yeah. Well, you know what?
Exactly, so-
This is the problem. We're trying to like save a stupid model, right? Like,
No, we're not. No.
No, it's just
absolutely
I mean it's
disagree
just an
with
alternative theory.
with the vacuum of space, whether it be an electric universe
but
or
the
the
vacuum of
classical
space is
gravity-based
not-
universe, but still just the concept of
the idea of the
electricity
vacuum of
being
space-
there, causing things. That there is a good point to that.
No, there's no good point, because the vacuum of space is also an idiotic concept.
Yeah, but if you take that out, then it can still work on the local level. That is the whole point.
I will read Grimvy's comment. So he says, except it's not a complete vacuum. Space is full of electrical plasma.
It's a heliocentrism cult. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you, enemy. But I don't know if you heard. I just read out that comment. So he's saying it's not a perfect vacuum. It's plasma.
What's
Well,
plasma?
that couldn't work. If
That-
everything
that's-
was
that's
plasma,
even-
then everything would also light up. Everything would be one giant light bulb if that was the case.
That doesn't make any sense at all, and I don't think that's what they're saying in the electric universe theory.
No.
Aren't they saying that it's like a luminiferous ether? I can't remember even the details.
No, what their theory is that the sun is not burning up of hydrogen gas, causing a local flame. What they're saying is it is being lit up like a lamp. Like the gas is being lit up like a lamp through
like
the
a
electrical field. That is their alternative theory.
So they think it's like a fluorescent light.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
That is the electrical universe space-based theory, and it's well established. I think you guys can all agree that I do not agree to any type of outer space universe with giant bodies of gas and a vacuum, but still the workings of the concept of the electric universe, the base foundations, not spatial wise, but just working wise, the chemical processes, the electricity fields that are assumed in there, they have a lot of legitimacy if you apply them locally.
I don't agree. I don't think it's any better than the traditional science, personally. I think in some
You
ways
don't
it's
seem to listen to the statement that I just made.
No, I listened to the statement you just
I
made.
think
That's your opinion, and then
I
I
think
stated
it's
my
10
opinion.
times better than the fact of all the planets that have all the moons, and
I agree.
like none of the moons are pulled away from their planets by the sun's gravity. Like that's, I mean, it's ridiculous.
Of course.
I don't think it makes.
Riddled with holes.
I don't see. It doesn't have any kind of basis in any sort of like sound logic or unknown physical
At
phenomenon.
all.
Yeah, but if you take the outer space universe out of it and then you apply it locally, like what I just said, and you ignored it for some reason, then it can still work within a flat Earth
Yeah, but it's the
enclosed
electric
world.
universe theory. So what? Okay, never mind.
You
Who
take
cares?
the
You know what?
universe out of it and it can work.
Okay, so if we take the universe out of the electric universe theory,
Yeah.
and we just are left with electrodynamics, yeah, okay, I'm cool with that.
Yeah, with an electric field here on Earth causing a lot of elements. It is
I
basically
think
more
that's a perfectly
related.
reasonable. That's a good conclusion to draw that out on. Actually, I mean, I would totally agree with that statement too, Numi.
Yeah, okay, electrodynamics exists. Good, we agree.
Yeah, but also there is just a giant electric field here on Earth that causes all these things that have a lot of
Causes
effects,
all-
and that are probably the foundational cause for the globe of the heavens in some way that we do not completely.
Okay, what I think is interesting about this, right, is that I think that somewhere, and I'm not going to claim to be able to explain this, but I just have it's something that I plan to look into as a kind of ongoing thing into the future, is that I think that it's this electric field about the Earth that is somehow responsible for the pressure gradient of the air. That it has something to do with the intensity of the electric field interacting with the like the negatively charged sky versus the positively charged ground, and that somehow in the interaction, like whatever is causing lightning, for instance, is somehow
All the lightning
also
that's in the world.
causing like an electrical gradient that is somehow and like I say, I really don't have a good explanation of it now, but I feel like it's got to be somewhere in there that explains the pressure gradient.
You know who to speak to? Chris Monk Seeley. So speak to Chris Monk. He gave me an explanation for this.
Yeah, I have been talking to him about it actually a bit, and yeah, he definitely has some good insights. And
yeah, very interesting.
But I'm trying to think about that. Like to me, that's sort of like a long-term project.
Yeah, but I mean, if I give an oversimplified example of something that Chris was explaining, so if you take clouds, and based on this principle, you'd say, well, how is hundreds, thousands, trillions of tons of water levitating above our head? Well, if it has a negative charge and Earth has a negative charge, then it's going to be repelled and stay up there. Now, what do you know? We have this dissipation of this stuff called lightning, and then we get rain come down. So it kind of makes perfect sense when you think about it. Now, I'm not claiming this is proof of anything. I'm not saying this is the way the world is. But when Chris explained it in those terms, I was like, that makes a lot of sense. Same with plants. We've been talking recently about, on a off topic, it's not on this exact subject, but talking about how do you have plants bringing the water up? And in terms of the vacuum pumps that they created back in the 1800s, they had a limitation of about 10 meters of draw. So you go, well, it can't be vacuum pressure that's bringing up this water into this plant, and it can't be capillary action either, because you'd see the tree moving, but you don't. So what's causing it? Well, if, again, your same example, if it's, I don't know which way around, just for the sake of example, it has a positive charge and then falls to the ground, i.e. is attracted to it, maybe the plant is ultimately also negatively or positively charged, and it forces it up the plant by virtue of its actual its charge. Same example he gave with sperm. It was like, how do they do it? How do they contain all this energy to make such a massive journey? Well, if they are literally using the magnetic field that is inherent everywhere anyway, and they just have an opposite charge to it, they will be forced on their way without having to expel a single ounce of energy.
Right. Or there could be some sort of, it could be like ionic conduction through the reverse polarity in the xylem and phloem. Because the xylem, I believe that draws water up the plant. I could be wrong. I could be mixing these up. And then the phloem brings
From what I read, it was a
energy down.
type of evaporation that the plants use, like the water
Siphonic
that's in the
action. That's
leaves
the siphon.
evaporates,
Yeah.
and then basically it siphons it from the ground.
Yeah, but he's saying that that can't be the whole explanation, which I don't know if that's even true, but assuming that that's not the whole explanation, there could be some kind of like that it could be using that it could be conducting electricity similar to how electricity is conducted through the human body, which is through ions. Right?
There's more with plants. There's more to it because there is it is like a bit like the workings of a vein. Vein have inner structure that when a pressure is applied, it will allow the whatever's in there, in this case blood, to move into one direction but not the other because of the structure. And plants have similar effects. So it is kind of like a straw working. At the same time, there's being water evaporated at the top, causing a slight vacuum, pulling things up a bit. Then at the same time, the water below is being drawn up. It's just like when you put a long straw, into a glass of water, and you bend the straw around at the top, and then you pull water through it, you sip it through it, then it will flow out of it. Then basically the gravity will pull it out at the top and then draw water in from the entire glass, emptying the entire glass.
No, but you have to explain how the roots grow as well, right? So there's two. It's not a one-way. There's two-way flows in a plant, right? That's why they have the xylem and the phloem. It's kind of like It's kind of like veins versus arteries.
Yeah.
They actually have like a two-directional. Like they have separate systems in place for delivery in the upward versus the downward direction, more or less. So it's like. But
water, it also has the glucose in it, and that it travels back down to feed everything else.
It's probably going to be similar, similar with animals in the sense, and including humans in the sense that we have electrical systems that exist but flowing through in an ionic kind of way, so that we trigger the cell permeability through ionic channels. I don't know. It gets really complicated.
It wouldn't surprise me the least if there is a direct electrical function that causes the whole water movement within trees to work as they do. Because hey, we all know that if you put a cell phone tower right next to a tree, they will start to die and they will dry out. Specifically, dry out.
No, I don't believe that.
Yeah, they do.
I don't believe that's
It's been well established. Very active cell phone towers, direct plants directly surrounding them will start to dry out. Specifically dry. They won't develop diseases or anything. No, they will dry out.
I have seen some type of experiments where plants are put next to like Wi-Fi routers.
Yeah, exactly. That is very solid. It's been experimented with.
When you say you've seen the experiment, does that mean you read about it or that you've seen?
I've seen it.
I believe I've seen a couple of minor experiments on YouTube. I'm not gonna.
No. I'm saying, have you seen them in person? Right? Because I think there's a lot.
I haven't done it in person. It takes some time, but I've seen videos and I've talked to people that have done them that I have no reason to distrust.
Well, the reason to distrust is because we more or less can understand what the cell phone towers are radiating, right? Which is radio waves.
No, it's not just radio waves.
Okay, what else is it?
It's a higher frequency wave.
It's a higher frequency radio wave.
It's higher than radio waves.
No, it's still in the radio spectrum. It's still
it's at the highest end of it.
Yeah, but it's still
higher. It's more like the brainwave level.
Yeah, but it's still thousands of times weaker than, say, visible light or sunlight, right?
No, not anymore.
What's drying out plants is the sun.
No, it's become a lot stronger since the early days. With the 5G, it's become incredibly strong.
Incredibly weak and
no, it's not incredibly weak at all. It's very strong now.
No, it's totally very weak.
No,
Radio
it's
But
not.
even
Alan.
No,
but
it's
no, but even if you think it's weak, I mean, think about it's everywhere now, man. It's
Yeah, but it was
everywhere.
always it's always
Everywhere. Everything has got every device has got some type of Wi-Fi connection.
yeah, I know,
Some
but
type
those
of
but okay, understand that those radio frequencies have always basically been
Me.
they've always been saturating
Hi,
the
Tim.
Hey, Tim.
it's not
radio
weak. No,
the
me,
radio
it's not
the
weak.
radio-
If you
hey,
put
hey,
a
you're not
this
letting
is
me finish.
scientifically manifested. If you
room.
put a mobile up to your head
Yes, get to
and you
room.
phone on it for an hour, then it will measurably heat up the inside of your skull.
Hello?
Hey, Melissa. How you doing?
Very much doubt
It's
that.
not weak at all.
Well, that's because the cell
Hello?
phone
This
itself
is Unorthodox.
from its
No, it's not the radiant heat of the cell phone. It's the actual radiation from the connection.
All right,
That is
now
what's
that we
heating up.
cleared that up, well done,
How
Arwen.
could that possibly be? That doesn't
Hey, you
make
guys were
Because
talking
that's
about
what
perfect
it does.
vacuum.
It's
No, no,
scientifically
there's so
proven. It's
Yeah,
everywhere.
No.
it's scientifically proven. What do you know? Hey, Arwen and
There's so
Nummy
little
Rummy.
evidence. Yeah, be
Hey,
quiet.
hey,
I'm talking-
Nummy.
Nummy.
I was wondering about the perfect
No,
vacuum.
I'm talking about. Yeah, shut up. I'm talking about.
What? I was wondering about the perfect
Well,
vacuum
why
that you
you're
speak of,
interrupting a conversation right now, Tim? So I'm not
because
gonna-
you guys have been talking the whole show. Okay,
Yeah.
there's now a full
Can we
panel.
please
You guys
round
can
up?
kind of
Isn't this a debate show? Isn't this where
well,
we're
yeah,
supposed to
between
talk?
Arwen and
Yeah, but
Nummy
this
Dummy,
guy's just an annoying
Dumpy Rumpy.
bully.
Hey, so you kept speaking of perfect vacuums. Can you give me an example of a perfect vacuum?
No,
No?
no,
Oh. Why not?
it doesn't exist.
But you were just speaking of them, what, 15 minutes ago?
Yeah, I said a perfect vacuum is a perfect insulator because we know that a near perfect vacuum is the best insulator that we have. So presumably, if we made it perfect, it's not going to get worse. It's going to get better, right?
So they don't exist, but you've
No. Okay,
speculated.
so what you think is that okay? So we have a nearly perfect vacuum, but that if we made it perfect, suddenly it's going to be a conductor and not an insulator. Is that what you're saying? Because that's
No, they actually don't exist. That's what I'm saying.
Unmute microphone.
I think Dumpy Rumpy left.
No, he just.
All right,
trying
he's
to-
back.
You're trying to catch me on some little wordplay game or whatever.
No, you can go listen to the whole Gish Gallop session you guys just had for the past hour and listen to how
I said,
you
what did I say?
phrased
I said a perfect vacuum is the best insulator in the universe.
Okay,
Yeah.
but they don't exist?
No, they don't. But I'm
Okay,
saying.
so you're saying
Okay,
something,
let me walk you through this
but
again.
it doesn't exist.
I'll walk you through this again. A nearly perfect
No,
vacuum.
please, no.
No, Nami, it is established.
Right, no, me, let me address that.
Tim
Let
is
me
just
address
trying
that,
to
'cause
get be
Yeah, okay,
nitpicky
fine.
here.
Yeah, forget it.
As
Yeah, I'm
much
not
as,
going to respond
as
to you.
much as it kills me to agree with Tim, Tim is right. You and Arwin have literally dominated the whole show. Now, with regards to the claim about the vacuum not being perfect, Rumpus claims that there are such a thing called, how did he word it, Nathan? Was it? It was particles, but they were. What was the word he used when they were like artificial? Did he call them? I can't remember what the word he gave to the particles that he said that they were basically pseudo particles that would always constitute a nil. They would never constitute a nil vacuum because of these special particles that only science exists.
Or neutrinos or something?
No, they were called. It was either virtual particles.
Oh,
or
virtual.
Virtual.
Virtual
Yeah.
particles. Yeah, that's a good one.
Arwin,
Virtual particles. Yes.
the Rumpus would argue that you can't have a perfect vacuum because there are always particles in that vacuum. It's never truly
Yeah.
perfect.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I do too as well.
Yep.
Anyway, let's invite some conversation. Tim, have you found that bulge yet that you were talking about yet? Because you disappeared after making your videos the other day. I was hoping we'd see some bulge proof.
Yeah, the bulge is actually covering Salt Lake City.
No,
Yeah,
Half
yeah,
of it.
that-
Here we go again.
No. I'm just trying to change the topic a little bit because it was getting a bit stale.
Oh, it's so boring.
You say you're
excellent.
boring, Tony.
So if there's a bulge between us and Salt Lake City, how come there's a reflection?
Nummy Rumpy, hey dude, you really need to do some
swerve there,
research. You need to
Did you
do
see
some
that swerve?
research on Electric Universe, dude.
Me?
Yeah, you do.
Why?
It's really pathetic.
What did I
What
say?
you were
that-
saying.
What-
You don't know anything about it.
What
But
did
you're like, I don't like it. I don't like it.
Okay, well,
He
tell me.
just doesn't like the
how I
universe component of
misrepresented
it.
it.
Arwen actually schooled you on Electric Universe, so
No, he
well done,
didn't.
Arwen.
What did I misrepresent? How did I misrepresent the
You
electric?
just didn't have any representation of the Electric Universe. Period.
No, he just made a statement that he didn't like the universe component about it.
What is the
That's it.
vitriolic feeling that you guys have for the Earth rotating and going around the sun?
Well,
what is so
Presupposition
bad
that's
about
not
that?
been
I can perfectly explain it.
that there's
It
no
isn't.
proof for it.
That's
No
the
proof.
vitriolic feeling.
That would be
It
my
isn't.
issue. No proof.
I actually really like the idea of a spherical Earth going around the sun, but unfortunately, there's no evidence to support it. So it's.
So I
don't
will
think it's
agree when
evidence
someone
at
says
all.
there's no proof, but when someone says that there is no evidence,
There's
I
no
think
evidence.
you're being dishonest.
There isn't any
No, there's
evidence.
absolutely.
Earlier
evidence
saying
whatsoever.
that orbital mechanics doesn't work, I'm sure has
Orbital
never looked at
mechanics
any
is based
kind of...
on a presupposition, isn't it, Tim? So while you can make these amazing presuppositional arguments,
Oh
that's
my
based-
god, presuppositional.
Yeah,
Oh my
that's
lord.
what it is. Yeah, when you tell me, well, we must see this from this side of the sun, you're automatically assuming we're traveling around the sun. That's a presupposition.
I actually said, what is you guys' deal with the Earth spinning and going around the sun? What is it that? How is that?
Yeah,
a
no worries,
presupp-
I can repeat that. Total and utter lack of any evidence to support that assertion whatsoever. That would be my issue with that.
Because you've never touched orbital mechanics. You have no idea what orbital mechanics is.
Did I not just say to you that
There's
it's
no
based on
orbital-
a
You don't
presupposition?
have any idea what orbital mechanics is.
There's no such thing as
What
orbital.
you've been told by
There's no
somebody?
such thing
You
as
went to
orbital
school for it?
mechanics. Are you kidding me?
Presupposition.
No, there's no orbital mechanics. There's no orbital. There's no orb. So there's no orbital mechanics.
He doesn't seem to
So
understand
you're-
what a presupposition is. He just laughs and says,
Oh
"Oh,
my
presuppositional, the defeater of my argument. How dare you bring that up?"
You got that word from me, just
But
like
there's
you
no
got quantum
evidence
erasers words.
Absolutely no evidence of the heliocentric model. It's not if it's not a reality, then there's not going to be any evidence for it. That's just how it works. There's not going to be
Really, it doesn't matter if it's helio or geocentric. It doesn't really matter. But the Earth is observably and demonstrably.
Flat as a pancake. Yeah, I completely agree.
not one lick of
Would you-
evidence.
Look
Would
at
you
the
come on here
sunset
with
and
flat
not
Earth
changing
evidence?
angular size throughout the day on Nathan's screen right now. Look how the sun sets, but it's going down a slant according to Arwen probably.
No,
Yeah,
it's,
so
not-
according
it's not
to
setting.
you guys
There's a
all have
gap.
different
There's a
it's
gap.
going away
Hold
from us,
on.
man.
There's a gap
Oh, okay.
between the
Why doesn't
sun.
it change angular size then?
There's a gap. It's not setting. It's not going behind anything because there's a gap between the sun and the sea.
So you just impose your belief system on it and then claim it as evidence. It's just silly. You just have a silly man argument.
He's just clowning around. Come on.
Yeah, I know. He's a silly man.
So you're not going to explain with perspective why the sun doesn't change in angular size throughout the day. It's not biggest at its zenith point to the observer.
No, I'm not going to explain it.
Why not?
Don't know what the sun is.
I don't know.
Don't know what the sun
You
is.
don't know?
Don't know
We
what
have
it is.
no
I have
possible
no idea.
explanation as to what it even is. So why should
Why
we?
do you need to know the composition of something to do an observation of that something?
Well, it would help if
Well,
it
you
was.
don't. But if
You don't need to. You can
causes
do an
it-
observation of it, but
Look
then
at the
to
word
draw
tangible.
conclusions from that observation is quite moot if you don't have any causal explanation as to
No,
what
so
it really
you've
is
drawn
and how
many,
it
many
works.
conclusions for the flat Earth, but at
So
the
wait,
same
so wait.
time, you just reject that the sun doesn't change in angular size throughout the day, and you
And
call
actually
the
physically
the
measure
celestial
the flat
sphere-
Earth, and you
call
can't.
the
do that with
celestial
the
sphere
sun.
a globe of the heavens, and you believe in gravity, and you believe that there's a slope. So you're not even a flat earther, dude. You're not a flat earther.
I've never said any of those things.
No, I'm actually talking to
He
Arwen
doesn't
now.
believe in a curve. There's no curvature.
Yeah, it's a
That would make him
slant
flat.
to him, which slant, I
Yeah,
guess, means that it's
non-physical. How
flat.
many times do I need to tell you? It's optical. Start
Oh,
laughing
it's
again.
optical.
Yeah,
okay.
it's optical. Start laughing again. Come on, do
So
it.
it's not actually there. It's not
Tim,
there.
Indeed,
That's
it's
no
not
evidence.
physical. It's an
Where's your
optical effect.
The slant that he's talking about is what you call curvature, man. Why? How is it you can't understand that?
I
He's
do
not
understand.
saying that.
but he has
He's
no
not
evidence
saying
of
the
that.
Earth is
Apparently, it's
slanted.
diffraction.
He's saying that point where you ballers called.
What he's saying is an excuse. Who is that, Alan?
That's
Alan,
Alan.
what is
Can
you
you
doing?
mute, buddy? He's saying an excuse to keep the narrative
Alan,
alive of the
please
flat Earth
mute
for
the
himself.
YouTube.
That's all he's doing. You guys can't accept that there is evidence for the spherical Earth, no matter if it's
There isn't
geocentric
any.
or
There isn't any.
heliocentric.
Well,
There are
your
two
your
celestial
evidence for the
points. There are
spherical
two
Earth.
celestial points, and the latitude and longitude system work. If you guys
Based
could
on
concede that,
some
you would
evidence
be
presupposition. How many
intellectually
times am I going to
honest.
say it?
There is some evidence for it. There's also a lot of evidence against it.
No, there's no evidence for it.
Zero.
None.
There's
Zero.
no evidence.
All based on presupposition. Yeah, your latitude and longitude lines are plotted out on a sphere. So you're going to beg the question, if you want me to use quantum erasers terms, as you seem to like to accuse me of being him. So yeah, he likes to call it begging the question. A presupposition
Oh my
argument.
God.
Assuming your
Give it a
outcome.
fucking break, Nathan.
No swearing.
Yeah.
No need to get triggered.
No,
Just because we're pointing
seriously,
out where
get-
your arguments fail. There's no need to get angry about that. But you assume the outcome. That's what begging the question is. So by saying, oh, well, when we're on this side of the sun, you're automatically travelling around the sun. You can laugh it up, mate. That's what a presupposition is.
I didn't even laugh. That was Nummy Rumpy or Dumpy Rumpy or whatever
My
the hell his name
apologies.
is.
Either way,
Yeah, I
that's
was
what a
thinking you
presupposition
could-
is. That's why we can declare this. No
presupposition.
evidence. None. It's
Yeah.
all based on
Okay.
presupposition.
And you have no
proof. There is some
presuppositions for
evidence,
the
but
flat
there's
Earth
no
belief
proof.
that you have. None. Because
No.
it's not there.
No, that's why we
What
acknowledge
presupposition have I
all the
used?
things that we don't know. We're very willing to acknowledge our ignorance of certain, the nature of many phenomena that.
So the celestial
guys-
sphere, there being two
Guys.
celestial points and arc star trails over your head at your zenith at the equator is not evidence, Dumpy Rumpy, of a spherical Earth. It's not.
That's correct.
It's not. Okay.
Rumpus isn't even in the room, dude.
No, Dumpy Rumpy or Nummy Num.
Okay. Yeah, it's not evidence at all because it's just if to take it as evidence would require you to presuppose that it's a sphere.
You and your presuppositions. Good Lord, man.
Look at my presuppositions. Oh.
You just sit in your armchair and you're like a YouTube researcher that cherry picks things. And it's like, hey, this one goes against my narrative. I'm going to chuck it out and say it's BS.
What
Hey,
have
this
I
one
cherry-
goes for
what
my
have I-
narrative.
What have I cherry picked?
Oh my gosh. Everything you talk about is from any experiment you talk about, any research you're doing is from people that know that the Earth is a sphere. Period. How are they credible? How is all of
you know
science a conspiracy when it comes to the shape of the Earth, but they have light and refraction and diffraction and all these things pegged down? How is that? How is that plausible?
Don't claim to have these things pegged down in the slightest. But we do point out that you presuppose things.
Oh my God, I'm done.
Hey,
Well,
Hey,
what?
Nathan?
When you use words like zenith, which refers to the celestial sphere, then you're presupposing sphericity. Yeah? You don't have to like it, Tim. You know, you can run with your tail between your legs because you don't like the fact that we're destroying your argument because it is based on presupposition. That's why Nummy and I have declared on multiple occasions you have no evidence.
Yeah, we can see that there's any evidence. If it's not the fact, there's no evidence. You know, anything
There's no
that you,
proof, right?
anything
Evidence,
that-
proof, or not exact. Evidence just is like a suggestion of that it could be like that. But if you have evidence to the contrary, then there is no proof because it's
But if it-
disproven, right? So there is some evidence
no,
that it
there's
could
no
be a ball, but there's also a lot of evidence that it can't be a ball.
no, there's no evidence. There's misunderstandings. That's
Yeah, misunderstandings and presuppositions. That's it. That's not evidence.
Owen,
Yeah.
have you noticed you're always wrong when Numpty's on?
Well, in his mind probably, but nah, not always. By the way,
no, we agree about
it
most
goes ups and
of
downs.
the shape of the Earth, right?
I'm going to say,
More than
I
a
agree with
thousand
Arwen more often than I
times.
disagree with him.
Don't listen to him, Arwen. He's just trying to fan the. They're trying to sow dissent between us. You know,
Yeah,
they're
but they don't need to. There's plenty just naturally there.
Yeah, Alan. Oi.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's because you have oppositional defiance disorder or whatever.
Yeah, and so do you.
What was that? Oppositional defiance? What?
Disorder.
1, 2.
Disorder.
1, 2.
He's always talking about it. He's always claiming that I have oppositional defiance disorder because part of oppositional defiance disorder is that you project your oppositional defiance disorder onto others, right? It's the ultimate
No,
form.
no. That's not part of it at all. No,
No,
that's just
not part of it.
projection.
Stop being oppositional.
I love how
No,
contrarian Owen
Oppositional
is
defiance
today.
disorder is a neurotic behavior in which you have to take an opposing position to the rest. That is oppositional defiance.
Yeah, that sounds like me.
That's you today, Arwin. That's you all over.
I know, and I
No,
fully
it's
admit
not.
that. But I do uphold a system of integrity and truth to basically compensate for that.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
No,
Only kidding. Relax.
Check out Issa.
Suggesting that I don't. Do you think I'm not motivated by integrity and truth? Really?
No, I'm not saying that at all.
They're all
But sometimes you just hold on a little bit too much.
Well,
I think
if the Earth was flat, it would look like. Look at the sun. Look at my screen.
I'm all about integrity and truth, man.
It's moving perfectly straight.
Those are my middle.
Hold on. Go
be
ahead,
honest-
Matrix. You're on screen. You go ahead.
I was just showing if the Earth was flat, this is what the sun would do. It's moving perfectly straight.
Yeah, real quick,
Now,
just
is
the
there atmosphere counted into that?
We don't know what the sun is the other problem, right?
Yeah, that's a bit of a big problem.
Well, that's the major problem.
You're all wrong.
Yeah. No point in
Because
even
what
deal with it.
what if the sun is doing exactly that, except because of the atmosphere, we it looks like all the other crazy shit that we see.
We really don't see that much shit, you know? We just see 5,000 stars, planets, the moon, and the sun. That's what we see. It's actually pretty simple. They extrapolate this whole big, crazy universe out of it, but really, they can't really see much more than what you can just see from looking
Yeah,
at this.
you're right.
It's hilarious,
I'm
actually.
gonna try to model the Earth pretty soon.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm getting pretty good with the program.
Can I just say something real quick? To Timmy's point of the idea that there is evidence, and to say that there is no evidence is to be dishonest. Is the idea that when he's talking about the zenith of the star trails and stuff like that taken into account, along with the idea that we observe that other celestial bodies are potentially spherical, has led modern day science to deduce that we live on a ball. And that's where this is like, there's a congruity in this scientific
argument about the globe of the heavens is founded upon an unspoken physical literalism bias assumption.
Yeah.
I think what he's saying.
It's at best circumstantial evidence, right? Circumstantial evidence is not really evidence because, you know, if it turns out to be wrong, then that stuff we're going to realize it wasn't evidence at all. It was just a big mistake.
That's just your oppositional defiance disorder, no, me.
But it's their favorite question.
Sorry to interrupt you guys. Sorry to interrupt
everything else, if everything up there is a globe, why can't the Earth be a globe? That's their favorite question.
Well, that's the idea that's the inference and that's the induction of like the idea of all the reasoning. You know, that's they've deduced all this information to seem that this is why there is evidence.
No, but deductions aren't evident. Deductions are not evident.
I was going to say, I'd quite like to hear, sorry to interrupt Issa, I just want to hear what Anthony's got to say on the subject of what isn't evidence.
Right. Well, the star trails and looking at it like that, that is evidence.
No,
no, it's really not.
Well, I mean,
it's evidence, but it's not very good evidence.
Evidence of what? With the stars.
Well, it's evidence.
Evidence with a lot of base assumptions.
My thing is
that
let me
very much
put it in
undone, basically. So it's not good evidence.
Let me put it in a different way, Nomi. What Tim's point was, and I do agree with Tim, as much as it pains me to say it, he's saying that there is evidence, and I do agree with him, there is evidence. How strong the evidence is why we're all here. It's not all strong evidence, and a lot of it's really weak, but it's presented as strong. And what Issa's saying is that the stars are evidence that we live on a ball. I agree. It is evidence we live on a ball.
I'm here. This is
I
unorthodox.
agree with that too.
No, but I'm
just
saying
not very good evidence, and there's a lot of holes in it.
Right? So you know what? It's circumstantial evidence. You know what?
Yes,
Circumstantial
exactly.
Hold on, let me finish. You know what circumstantial evidence is?
Yes.
Evidence that
Yes,
requires.
exactly. I agree
Let
with
me
you.
finish what I'm saying. It's evidence that requires that you have a
I'm here, by the way.
It's evidence that requires a lot of base assumptions, just
Right.
like the whole R thing and everything.
I just don't understand the jump.
Circumstantial evidence.
You're never going to.
Circumstantial evidence is not evidence that proves a particular point, but it looks like it probably does prove a point, even though it actually doesn't.
You cannot build any kind of real case on circumstantial evidence because it's not
agreed.
really.
Thank you.
Well, my point
It's
is
just how do they make the jump from the things that are up there are moving? So it's not that's moving. It's us that's moving.
Well,
Like,
it's based
why
on.
is it? Why can't it be? It's those things that we see in the sky that's actually moving and not us.
Well, there's a simple answer, and we've said it about 20 times on this show. The word is presupposition.
Yeah.
Well, no, the idea is that the evidence is getting
the
evidence of what we observe as regards to the other celestial bodies and their apparent sphericity. Like a couple. Hold on, let me finish. 1 second. Coupled with the notion of what we see when looking at the stars, and noting that if the stars, if we share some kind of sphericity with the planets that are out there, let's say, then the idea is that if they are moving, then it leads us to the potential that we too are moving. And what other things do we share with them? You know, this is why there is evidence, but the point is that it's your decision at the end of understanding that evidence, which way you're going to conclude all that evidence.
Can I ask you, what's the evidence? What is indication is that these planets are spherical?
Well, have you ever why would you say looking at Saturn through a telescope?
Yeah.
Or looking at Jupiter through a telescope, or those kinds of things, they lead us to think that there is this sphericity as regards to the wandering stars.
No, there's not.
Don't know what you're talking about.
It's just disc shape,
just
and
like
Saturn happens to have this weird ring-like anomaly.
They don't look spherical at all to you?
No, they don't.
There's absolutely no. It's kind of like the moon. We only see one face of it. There's absolutely no indication that it's a sphere. It's funny.
They're round. They're not a
Sorry,
sphere.
I just want to get a little qualifier.
Why did the shadows...
Hold on 1 second. So we're talking about something that would require binocular vision in order to see sphericity. To see a third dimension in what you see in the sky, you would need to use both eyes, and you're looking through telescopes at it. So you can't identify sphericity in anything in the sky through a telescope. That's not a possibility.
They don't look like spheres at all. I've looked through telescope, and when you look at the planets, they don't look any. There's no indication that it's a sphere. You can't see any.
Well, hold on. I'll just say I'll say this much.
Yeah.
I'll say this much, that I would think, without any preconditioning, MK Ultra mind control, if I look at the fucking moon, pardon my language, forgive me, that's the second time today. Is the idea that it has an air of sphericity to me. I played baseball all my life, so I can I always look, baseballs, and the idea that I was familiar with the idea of how and what it looked like and how light interacted with a sphere. And I have to give the evidence to the idea that looking at the moon, it appears to be, and it appears to have some kind of sphericity to it. That doesn't mean that it is, but I'm saying to my eyes, it does look and appear as if it is spherical. And that's why when I look at Saturn, I've seen those things. What I'm trying to say is that, and much like I've heard it's an interesting point, that just because a pool table is, the pool balls are round, doesn't mean that the pool table is round, right? But my thing is, I can accept that as most interesting. My point is that there is evidence to deduce that there is some sphericity, taken it and coupled with the idea that we look at the star trails and we look at the way that the stars act in regards to from north to south in regards to the equator, and I think that's just fascinating evidence. It doesn't mean that it's what it's been given to us as. It just means that this is what the deduction of the science has given us. That's all.
Yeah, but they don't look like.
They won't even go there with you, though.
I'm not going there with him because I don't agree. But I'm saying you think baseball's not MK Ultra brainwashing?
I'm not talking about. I'm talking about
You know,
the
I play
idea of
baseball.
Sphere
Hold
out
on,
there
hold
in the
on,
heavens
bro,
that is
bro.
really
You're
sphere
doing
is the
apples and
entire
oranges,
thing.
bro. Hold on.
It's
I'm
the
talking
globe
about
of the heavens. It's the way the stars move around us. That is a sphere, and it spins. The entire thing.
Baseball is like Freemasonry the game, dude.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about,
Freemasonry the
you know,
game.
it could just be cricket, let's just say, because cricket's not imperial, right? The point is this, bro. What I'm saying is that it's looking at a ball. It's just that idea of like being familiar with like knowing, and you know, that's all I'm saying. And that's why I'm just saying to be honest about it.
Okay, to be honest with you, they don't look like balls to me. They look like round lights. I don't know. I don't see what you're talking about the sphericity. I don't think there's evidence of sphericity at all. None.
You know what freaks me out about the moon? Sometimes I look at it, and from one night to the next night, it literally looks like it's that same face is flipped, completely upside down. Because I pay attention to the orientation of where the shadows are, and then I'll look at it the next night, and it's literally like flipped. Like it just makes no sense. The damn moon. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a very mysterious thing. The fact that we only see one face of it is totally bizarre. I mean, that's what I'm saying. There's no evidence that it's a sphere because we're stuck looking at one face of it all the time. And I think that if you really thought about it, you'd realize that if it was a sphere, there'd be some sort of gradient.
Yeah, there's no way that everybody on Earth would see the same face.
Well, no,
every night.
No, that doesn't. Well, hold on, the same face of every night. That has nothing to do with the apparent shape of the moon. What I'm saying, I mean, that's the tour.
No, I understand,
well, like,
but that's just an insane factor by itself. How can you, if it's actually a sphere in the sky, how can everybody on the planet see one face? That's not possible if it's an actual physical sphere in the sky.
Sorry to interrupt you guys. Alan, you've got your watch page on. That's why people keep muting you. So it's not us with an audio issue. The page that you're chatting on, you've got that on. So you're getting echo. Yeah, sorry. Carry on.
But yeah, that's all. All I'm saying is that, like, I'm not trying to, you know, I mean, look, what we are experiencing is most fascinating. And I think that we have to just be honest in all directions about any of these inquiries. If the Earth turns out to be flat, hell yeah. If it turns out to be a ball, hell yeah. I'm still going to be playing music and having a good time. I don't know about anyone else complaining about, you know, like people getting together and having a good time. I have no idea.
No doubt. You know? I completely agree.
Well, I don't know what that has to do with it. I'm just saying that my point is that don't think there's any evidence that the planets are spheres. I really don't. Right, but I'm not trying to like hog the evidence or something. It's just that.
Well, no, the issue is that there's a whole bunch of people that do. There's a whole bunch of people that do see sphericity. You know what I mean? And it's just like it's taken into account. And I'm not trying to.
They assume
all I'm saying is that there's evidence. And to say that there isn't evidence.
Assume it. That's not really evident. Making assumptions isn't really evidence.
No. You can make assumptions about evidence, but it doesn't change the evidence.
It does actually.
Saying, let's all be honest about the evidence.
It does.
Okay.
If you're saying this is evidence of sphericity of Earth.
I could say that there's evidence that gravity is caused by invisible gnomes, right? Why not?
Well, what evidence would you have, though?
I'd just drop a mic, Issa, and then I'd call it evidence. I'd drop a mic, say that gnomes exist, and then call that my evidence. Right?
Hey, I gotta say, that's what's so weird to me is the lack of a professional response from the academia.
Yeah.
That's more, I mean, the deafening response, the idea that that's good enough, the idea that, in my opinion, I think, like, if someone would have come out and been like, no, we're not talking about, like, you know, what they're referring to as gravity isn't gravity. It's called gravitation, and it's due to this. And if they learned how to deduce, or if they just educate, I don't know. It's there is notions of the cosmological principle, and people
maybe they're dosing the water with LSD, and everybody's seeing spheres, but they're not really there.
I don't know. That's like saying the angular diameter doesn't change because of Freemasonry. My point is this: is that there's a real interesting discussion that in some cases gets overlooked. Now, like I've got people, is Issa confused? And what's Issa? If you want to know my true opinion, it costs $10,000. You can fucking PayPal me and I'll write you a letter about what I think the Earth is. The point is, pardon my language, but the idea is that Like, here I want to be like, I am interested in the facts and not not presuppositions that the earth, that they're lying to us because Freemasonry. Like, I just want to know, okay, what does modern academia accept? This is why Charles Flat Earth Math is so awesome, is he admitted that snipers taking into account the Coriolis insurance is actually an old wives' tale.
Yep.
Which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah. What does that prove, though?
That guy's usually wrong about everything. So, to me, his word, what he says, isn't really worth much.
No, it's his interpretation of the same set of facts that you're looking at.
No, because
but I mean, I don't listen. I never really listened to that guy very much, but just off the fact that he put Riley at 9 feet off the cuff right there is just stupid to me.
Well, he just did that yesterday.
It's clear that he's
been around
right on the beach.
He's been around here for a long time.
Well, people can be wrong a lot of the times. Does not exclude
I
them
understand.
from being correct about some things.
He's a pretty
No. Have you ever seen Jib? Hey, did you guys ever see Jabiru himself, Jibby Jedi, freaking talk to Flat Earth Math about these like some NASA footage and stuff? And I think Charles rage quit because Jibby was a beast on him. But the point is that, or he had a bad connection. God knows. The thing is that he left the call at a very, Jibby is pretty awesome guy. And so, yeah, I've seen different squirrely stuff, but he's a gentleman and he's a scholar. So, got to respect where it's due. But I think there is evidence.
I don't know. I just respect intellectual honesty. Just be honest about what you're saying, regardless of what you believe. Just be honest about it. Everybody's allowed to believe what they want.
Right, but that's like, you got to be careful with it, too, because it's like, hey, somebody, who's asking, That's my thing. Is who's asking?
I just think you got to be careful of these presuppositional arguments. And there is an interesting conversation to be had here about, like, are presuppositional arguments evidence? Right? Is evidence in the eye of the what are we going to count as evidence? Right? Like, maybe that needs to get sorted out a little more clearly. Because, like, to me, the idea, if you have to bring presuppositions into it, it's no longer evidence. Like, to me, circumstantial evidence isn't really evidence.
Yeah, they call them fallacies for a reason.
You guys have a fair point with the presumption of R. It's a fair point.
They call them fallacies for a reason.
The thing is that, what's up?
Yeah, but it's the same with spheres and all that. Assuming the planets are spheres is the same thing as assuming R.
I agree. No, that's what it implies. But, like, I just think that, like,
you're just trying to sort out the semantics, really.
Yeah, that's really what I think it's about. Because I think this is if you got to think about it, we as a people have been deprived of this conversation because of certain nationalistic stuff. And so I think it's so healthy for us to revive the conversation, but we have to be honest about it. We're like waking up to a conversation we used to have, like, as a collective conscious or something. And now we're opening up all these neurological pathways to fucking have it again. Pardon my language. Shoot.
Yeah, but
sorry,
it's just
so
sad
I
that we're being made fun of.
Hold on, Chocolate. I think Unorthodox wanted to get something in. So did you want to say something?
Me? Yes, I'm sorry. I tried to join with my own account. I didn't realize that my girlfriend's account was on here, just FYI. Yeah, I just wanted to talk about, you guys brought up a point earlier about, air pressure in a container, and you guys have talked about this quite a bit.
And with that, I'm going to say first and foremost, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully for sharing this debate. And also a massive, huge, enormous thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible. If you've not done so already, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!